So a little bit about Master Power Transmission. We've got a 220,000 square foot facility on 22 acres just south of Indianapolis, Indiana, in Cummins, in what they affectionately call Cummins, Indiana. It's in Bartholomew County, right where the Cummins factories are at. Been ISO 9001 certified continuously since 1993. We've got a broad mix of CNC equipment, manual equipment. We make, when we first heard about Amper, we heard it from another good, a peer company, and they put thousands of pieces in a box every single day. And I was wondering, how can we compare ourselves to that? We put 40 to 50 gearboxes in a box every day. So those gearboxes have a lot of components, a lot of manufacturing going on, but very different from an uptime perspective or what we're trying to get out of our machines versus thousands of pieces versus just one more piece every day can make a very big difference for us. We make 2 right angle worm gear product lines, some inline helical products, and then we make a shaft mount gearbox sizes 1.7 bore through 5 7/16. So our focus is really to be a great company, not a huge company. And then the process of getting there is really trying to get as many of our folks on the floor, as much of the production team, the support team, the materials, manufacturing, engineering, all involved in making sure we're doing the right things to provide that customer service and make us unique, make customers want to come to work with us. Our challenge before Amper was really determining, and a lot of times it was after the fact, where's that one extra piece that we can get every single day? We make big housings, so we've got big horizontal mills, and a great day is getting 11 pieces off of that machine, and a not so good day might be only 10 pieces per day. So we're really trying to figure out, how do we get there? What do we have to look at? And we always found out after the fact because everything was manual. We have a lot of different machines in the shop. We've got 51 people that do all the work for us in the facility, but we've got, on any given day, we've got 86 to 95 machines across more than, I think it is 65 different work centers out there. So getting those people to the right spot and understanding what's happening on any given day is very important for us to see and to see it as quickly as we can. When we started down the Amper path, what we took a look at doing was, let's focus on the machines that are maybe shift bottlenecked. Not every machine within our facility has to run every single minute of every single day, but we identified at least 25 of them that we really wanted to understand what we could get off those machines, how we could do a little bit better, and how we could make it as easy for everybody involved to get that information. When Akshat asked me, what did you do before Amper? I kind of laughed a little bit because these things probably are very similar for all of us. They're things that we would all like to know, and we've probably all tried to skin that cat many, many, many different ways. And I can remember back in 2001 or 2002, we just invested in 2 very big Mazak machines, more than $1 million each, and I knew I had to keep those things running. I knew people were going to be asking a lot of questions. So we invested in a big LED digital clock, and I thought we were pretty smart because we made an e-stop button, and the rules were when you came into work in the morning, you pounded that, it reset it to 0, and then while that spindle was running, we did have it hooked up where it would do a countdown on the clock. So at the time, I could walk out in the shop and I'd see that big red clock, and it was really just on 2 of our machines, but I was able to see, hey, we're 7 hours into the day and spindle's been running for 3.5, and you start asking questions. And before long, people understood, hey, I don't want to have to answer a lot of questions. So it got the production managers involved. It got the operators involved. But it was 2 different machines, very hard. It was never as accurate as we wanted it to be. And somebody had to write it down and kind of keep track of it. So, it helped. It did provide some results. But for a long time, I was looking that there's got to be a better way for this to happen. The other thing that we really found interesting is, I mentioned a little bit, our facility is about that 1 extra piece per day. We don't have to have 100 machines running every single minute every day. We've got to get the right people, the right resources at the right time. So back in the day, and I'm talking 10 years ago, we did what's called time away from direct tracking. We wanted to know when our guys were not running, how were they spending their time so we could start focusing on those issues. And at the time, our folks had to turn in a time card every day. And we would ask them to, on the back of it, to tell us what prevented you from keeping that spindle running. And of course, it was the maintenance, it was the setup, it was this, it was that. But it was collecting those sheets Every week, a different production manager was responsible for putting all that data into a big Access database, and it did provide the data that we wanted. But wow, it was a lot of work to do all of that. We just kept saying there's got to be a better way of managing this. Then along came Amper. Heard about it from another great company. It was in the fall of 2021. Well, actually, I visited them in the fall of 2021, and I don't know when you guys started, but it wasn't even on his radar at the time. Within 2 or 3 months after that, though, I had another opportunity to speak with him. He's like, "Hey, have you seen Amper?" And I'm like, "I haven't seen it yet. Tell me about it." So he told me about it very quickly. It was very early, late winter, early spring. While I was talking to Bill on the phone, pulled up the website, and very, very easy to get going. I believe it was click a couple buttons and you have two devices that'll show up and you can get going with it. And I'm like, well, hey, there's not a lot of risk here. Let's get going with it. So we started with the two. The team does a fantastic job there. We were assigned a customer excellence or customer service engineer, worked with my guys, just really fantastic. And within a couple of weeks after receiving them, we were starting to see the machines being monitored on the floor, going through a calibration procedure. I can't speak enough about the ease of installation. Fantastic. Amper certainly committed to the success of what it is we were trying to do. They spent a lot of time understanding our business. It wasn't, one thing is the same for everybody. It's like, tell us about your business. What is it you're trying to do? And they worked with us. They helped us, fit everything in. Very quick to help, lots of reporting. They do with software that quick what would take us a lot of time. You throw out a good idea, they recognize it as a good idea. They hear other good ideas from other organizations and they build that in, and then we benefit from that. So it was really great to see the software evolve over that time as our data was starting to come in. I mentioned some of the things that we used to do, and the software and the system did a fantastic job of getting us what we needed, solved the problem, and gave us the timely data. Where we're at today is we've got 25 machines. It's those machines that we would call shift bottlenecked, where we might have 3 shifts of capacity, but we really want to run it for 1 shift. So we picked those 25 machines, put the sensors on it. We did that probably July, August, started calibrating and started having data roughly since last October. So how do we use the data? I mentioned that time away from direct. It's a real big deal for us because if we can find just that one way to get that one extra part per day, that makes a big difference, for the entire business, and makes people feel better when they walk out the door every day. So that old way we used to do things of the time away from direct tracking, the Amper software is so well integrated and easy to use that the guys, at first, well, I need to back up a little bit. I was very concerned when we saw this software that I wasn't sure how it was going to be perceived in our shop, from our production management team all the way down to the guys that are running machines. Because I was concerned that they'd see it as, another metric or another tool that I was really going to be asking questions about that they didn't want to answer, or, another, you guys have probably heard, another stick to hit them with, just another number that I got to hit. And so I saw the value in the software. And then, Mike was our customer service engineer, and he worked very well with our production manager. And the way those two guys worked together, a lot of the concerns I had, and I give a lot of credit to our production manager, Steve Bills, because he really did a fantastic job of selling it throughout all levels of the organization. I don't think we would be nearly as successful as we are with it today if it wasn't for Steve and the way he was able to get everybody to understand what it is we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. And then a little bit about the software made it a little bit easier for the guys to really buy into it. But once we got it out there, I was very concerned, and my concerns went away. We started to get the data. That time away from direct was a very important thing to us. And back in the day, when we did it manually, all of us have got Excel, we've got the Access databases, and we could see that, hey, we're getting a lot of data, but there's still, 25% of our day that we're not getting good, clean data on. I think there's a little typo in here. I probably did it myself, but we're really today on the machines that we're monitoring, less than 2% of all of our spindle downtime is not identified at this point. And if in October of last year, if I would have, if somebody would have asked me, I would have said, hey, if we can get below 10%, that's a lot better than we were doing last time. But today, less than 2% of that time is unidentified. And Steve is constantly working, and some of it sometimes just has to do with maybe that machine was scheduled to run the day before, we're not scheduled today. To Amper's credit, when we make a comment like that, they're like, okay, there's something we can do with the software, we'll give you guys a flag, and they help us change that so we can get the purest, cleanest data that we can possibly get, and they're very quick to do that. One of the things that we saw from this is there were no real big surprises, but it did put the time into a lot of buckets, and it helped us prioritize what we were trying to do. Instead of thinking it was the right thing to work on at that time, we were able to say, hey, this is the legitimate number one, number two thing that we've got to do. Here's what we should expect when we fix that problem. And the entire production team got it because they were involved in getting that data in there, helping to make sure that it was correct, it was right. So there wasn't a lot of selling them on, hey, if we do this, we should expect this much more. It was them coming to us in the production meeting saying, hey, if we could get rid of this, or we could change the way we do this, we might be able to get another 4% out of every single day. So that was fantastic from my perspective, because of me, instead of me telling them what they should do, they were telling me that if we fix this problem, this is what we're going to do for the business. So that was a big marked change in what we had seen. Operators have really taken to this in the area that we've got it. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but they've seen that the list has grown, but they do see that checklist and they see us checking things off. So it puts it in a very unique, I guess, priority list. It gives those guys something they can look at and say, hey, I do have a voice, instead of being, one of 6 million things it seems like that we can never get to. Now I know where I'm at on the list, and I know why we're working on this issue over here instead of mine at this moment, because mine is only worth, 0.5% of our day, and that one over there is worth 5% of our day. So it really just helped us communicate a lot of different things with those folks on the floor. I think I mentioned we've got a longer list of things that we want to work on, but now we know the value in working on those items. There are no question marks. There's nothing that's going to surprise us. And that's the great part of having timely and objective data. Some of the things that surprised me, and I was really happy when Akshat asked me to share some of this, is we've all seen the data. The data's great. You can get it a lot of different ways. But there have been a lot of things that I'm going to talk about that's changed my perception of our workforce. It's changed their perception of themselves. And it's friendly competition, some collaboration between production management and the guys that are working for them, challenging the support team like materials and manufacturing engineering. We'll talk in detail a little bit about I think a big bridge that we crossed, and we got there extremely quickly, was our operators quickly saw this as a tool for them. And once they realized it was a tool for them and it wasn't a tool for management to chase them down with another number, I think that really, really helped, with the implementation on the shop floor. Those guys, I give Steve a lot of credit, our production manager, but it's the guys running the machine now that are really helping make this a big success at the plant. I was telling Akshat, just a couple of weeks ago, this was a big part of the sell for me. It was the time to first piece. It was a canned widget, I think, or a canned report from day one. And the story behind that was our shop pretty much starts up every day around 6:30. And I get there typically around 7 or 7:15. But every now and then I'll come in early, and I was never quite happy with what I saw on the shop floor. It just seems like we were just a little bit slow to get going. And of course, when I would talk to Steve about it, there was always a reason. And he's like, well, hey, you just picked a bad day. And, a lot of us, we've probably been there before, and maybe I did. I had no objective data to challenge him on that. It's just like, hey, every time I'm in here, it seems like it's not the great day. But we didn't have that data. And then when we sat down in one of the first implementation meetings, quickly, Mike, the engineer, said, hey, we've got a great report for you guys. It's called the time to first piece. And I could just see Steve cringe a little bit because he knew exactly what it was. And as soon as we got through that meeting, I was like, Steve, it's not just me. It's not just us. The reason they've got that in their system, in their software already, is that's a problem for every organization. It's not just us. And I think once he saw that, two things. Once he saw that, he knew it just wasn't about him. It wasn't just a problem with our facility. But he also had now, he had an objective number that he could go after. There was no, Ryan thinks it's this way, and maybe it was just a bad day. We knew exactly what that number was on the machines that we're monitoring. And Steve could have taken that a couple different ways. I could have forced him to go after it, but instead he took it as a challenge. And that's one of the greatest things I've seen with the implementation of Amper in our shop, is the way it's changed the folks in our building. I always thought very highly of the way they did things. Akshat mentioned today the culture and the way it was adopted, but this whole implementation really just over the last 9 months has really reaffirmed that we've got a fantastic team, and they were ready for this, ready to take that next step. But Steve is really driving this one down, and then our operators got super involved with it. We've all got them in our shop, probably not our shining superstar. They do enough to get by. Got an attendance problem every now and then, but I was very surprised when he found out that there was actually an objective measure for that time to first piece. Everybody started asking questions. Well, how can I get my time where it needs to be? And he runs a CNC bar feed machine, and that guy out of nowhere surprised all of us, and he says, hey, I'm going to make sure that I'm the first guy to get a piece every single day. Last guy I probably would have thought, but somehow, some way, he saw the data. And since we had objective data, we were giving out, gift cards. Hey, let's have a weekly competition. And this guy, the last guy I would have thought of, probably started being the first guy. And it got to the point where when I was walking into the shop on those days at 6:30 and giving my production manager a hard time about some of the things I saw, this guy was one of those folks I'd see still putting on his work boots at 6:40 in the morning. And now what he does is he starts his machine up before 6:30. He just wants to make sure that there's no question marks about whatever's going on. So, it's really was a neat part and a big selling point for me when we saw that. And I pretty much justified the entire initial investment and what we're spending on Amper, where if I got half the machines we're monitoring, to get half or get back 50% of that time we're missing on the first piece, we would easily justify all the investment on this. And we've done a lot better than that just in the first 9 months. One of the things that really surprised me, once again, I've said it a few times, it's not about making 1 million parts a day. It's getting that one extra part per day. This Brandon happens to run one of our 1,000 millimeter horizontal machining centers. And over time, it ended up very clear that Brandon and Bobby Pierce, that runs gear hobbing equipment, they were kind of our leaders in the improvement in utilization out on the shop floor. And I never would have picked these two guys to be as competitive as they were, but we found that Brandon was, right now he's got to go to his production manager's office a little ways away. He goes there now while his machine's running, and he wants to see where he's at, but he's also checking on what Bobby's performance is for the day because he wants to be the man. And, he's a racer at heart, so I should have known he was a little bit more competitive. But, now he wants a display out at his machine. That's the last thing I ever would have thought. The guys wanted that number right on their machine. But he's like, hey, if I had it right there, I'd really know where I was at. Can we make that happen? So, yes, of course, we'll make that happen. But it's great to see the guys competing. Bobby had an opportunity, he's like, hey, I'm running 3 machines right now. If you guys put another machine in the sill, some of these hobbers have got 3-hour cycle times on the big output gears. I could run another machine. So we put another machine in there, and Bobby is now getting more standard hours per day and more utilization than Brandon is. So Brandon's trying to figure out how he can up the ante a little bit, but it might be a little bit tougher to move around another 1,000 millimeter machining center. But that's something I never would have expected to come out of this. Just another one of the great benefits. It really has changed a lot of the guys, given them, a little bit of friendly competition, and more of them enjoy it than I thought would have enjoyed it. The production managers, I was totally unaware that they had started doing something based on this data where every Friday when they make their numbers, they go out to lunch. Steve takes them out for lunch. And then I found that the way they're doing it is the person that has the best numbers for the week, if the whole team makes their production, the person with the best improvement week over week gets to pick the spot. So I was very thrilled when I went out. Akshat asked me to get some photographs. I went around and I found Nikki studying the data. And I said, so what are you doing right now? And she's like, well, I'm trying to figure out where I'm down a little bit. Terry's up on me right now, and I don't want to go have hibachi again this week. So she was working very hard to go, do what she had to do with her team to get the numbers so she could pick her place for where it was that she was going to go for that week. But that's another one. Terry and Nikki probably would have never thought that they would have had fun trying to see who could get the most production, but it's happening. And I give Amper a lot of that credit. The buy-in. I think one of the big bridges for us, I was very thrilled with our production management team. They seemed to follow Steve's lead very quickly and were thrilled with the process. I haven't heard anything negative about it, but I was really concerned. Probably October, November, December, it was pretty much managed by our production management team. And then when they started to roll it out to the floor, we were going to ask the guys to do their part. I was like, well, that'll be the next test for us. Let's see how well that goes. And when I asked Steve, it's like one meeting, it's the production managers managing everything. And the next meeting, he's telling me about the operators putting all the information in. I'm like, Steve, that's 1 week. How did you go from you guys to now everybody? And he's like, one of the biggest things that we had, and, if you haven't had the opportunity to use the software, it was call teams. We always talk in our all employee meetings or our production meetings, we're all involved in manufacturing. So yes, productivity is very important. Getting those parts out is important. Finding ways to do it faster. It's all very important. But a lot of times, no matter how many ways we all say it, no matter how many ways I said it differently or try to impress upon them that faster at master really involves all of us, they still took it that, hey, Ryan's talking about, I got to make more parts. I got to do more every single day. And that's really, really tough to get around. But when these guys saw what we call the call teams, it was a big signal for them that, hey, we have Amper on my machine, so it's already classed as critical. They're already tracking the performance. And now I've got this tool that, I don't want to have to explain at the end of the day why, I'm an hour off of where I should be. So there's a call team button, and Steve, everybody's got a mobile phone, the maintenance manager, the materials folks. And when the operator runs into a problem that's going to prevent him from maximizing his output for the day, he goes and he clicks on that call team, and it automatically texts everybody on the team. I think there's a couple different setups. If it's clearly maintenance related, or if it's like I don't have my material, a lot of people get a call, or just the right people get a call. But then the call team also measures the response time. So faster at master doesn't just mean I'm making more parts every day. It means I've got a materials problem. I'm going to click this call team, and Susan shows up, our materials manager. And, then she's got to click a button that says, hey, I'm here responding. Doesn't mean the problem is solved at that moment, but the operator quickly saw that, hey, they're serious about this. I've got an issue, click the button. Materials manager shows up to ask me what the heck is going on. So once they saw it wasn't all about holding them accountable, it was also about holding the rest of the support team accountable, it really went a long way. So that was January and February, and it's just, nothing has slowed us down at this point. I think Akshat's got maybe I went over that slide a little bit already, but the results have been impressive, and the adoption on the floor has been very good so far. That was the slide we were looking at. Yeah, it's crazy to think that, when I took a look at this data earlier, we've gone from the 20s to the 40s. And, that's one area we're looking at right now and working with their engineering team is we've got a lot of machines out there. Some of them don't have to run every single day. But the fact of the matter is, on the machines that we're monitoring, we're getting double out of those machines what we were getting out of them last October. And it is really showing up. I mean, when I hear a number like that, it's showing up in what we do. We happen to take our crew, it was a benefit for them. And on the manufacturing side of the shop, we went to 4 10-hour days on January 1st. Half the guys worked Monday through Thursday. The other half worked Tuesday through Friday. So we're all there 5 days a week for customers, but I think the guys really like getting that extra day off for the 3-day weekend. That's the same time we really got crazy in the shop with the operators with Amper, and those two things came together, and we've been running the shop producing the same number of standard hours that we were last year at a significant reduction in the amount of overtime that we're spending. A little bit of that has to do with the change in the 410s. There was an unintended benefit from that for us when it came to overtime. But the fact of the matter is we've been generating just as many standard hours this year at a very significant reduction in overtime. So when I see that, I may not see productivity double on a per operator basis, but when you take a look at the plant overall, we're generating as much as we were last year at a far better cost than we were a year ago. Well, hey, I appreciate everybody letting me share a little bit.